ladies and gentlemen. All right, let me get to it. Another QLS is upon us, and as I've always stated in previous shows, it is fun talking to the artist, but oftentimes I find it more fun getting the 411, the information from a different perspective, and oftentimes, promotion people, A&R people, CEOs kind of have a different perspective. And I guess, maybe I'm secretly a suit more than I am an artist. So I think I enjoy those episodes better. But even with the response we get from the podcast, it's often when we talk to label CEOs that I get the most feedback. So hopefully, if you're like me, this episode should be one for the record books, and for a lot of you hip hop junkies out there, you're in for a treat. I will say that when you hear cats my age speak of, okay, now the word, of course, of the year is Renaissance, and this isn't a Queen Bee reference, but when we're speaking of the Renaissance era of hip hop, we're talking about a specific time period. In which I will say the Renaissance era of hip hop versus the classic era of hip hop is sort of when the music palette, as far as sampling is concerned, extended a further reach past the first layer of sampling. Like the first round was like James Brown, George Clinton, and the what I call the Wikipedia of crate digging, known as Ultimate Beats and Breaks compilation. Shout out to Break B. Lou, good friend of the show. But all of a sudden, all those jazz records and all those boring albums in your uncle, aunt's record collection started to get utilized in this particular era of hip hop, starting with kind of in the early 90s and extending in the decade. And I will say that oftentimes when we talk about the Renaissance period, usually I would say that Illmatic is kind of synonymous with that era. However, and yes, I will say Illmatic is the pinnacle of that particular sound, but I will say that from a creative standpoint, that the label owned by our guest today was probably one of the most forward-thinking, consistent, envelope-pushing hip-hop labels that pretty much led the charge culturally for the directions of what credible hip hop sounded like, in a way that kind of like Def Jam was established in the 80s. I can go through, I had to write some of the names down. Twista, Madcap. I could spend an hour on Madcap alone because I thought, oh, that's a lane for the Roots. The Alkaholiks, of course, the Wu-Tang Clan, whoever they are, Cellar Dwellers, Mobb Deep, Big Pun, Exhibit. One of my all-time favorites, and will we ever release the Project Pat song? I don't know.
Yes,
Project Pat.
That's right.
Delinquent Habits, Dead Prez, Gangsta Boo, Little Flip, The Executioners, even with R&B with Davina, LV, and Yvette Michelle.
Hey, Adriana Evans' son.
Yeah, Adriana Evans. Even like well-known vets like Pete Rock, Beat Nuts, MOP, 3-6 Mafia, Uncle Luke, Funkmaster Flex, Red Alert. All these greats came to basically the House of Loud, as I say. But it would behoove me to also mention that our guest was very crucial also in the art of what we call street promotion, which I guess we take it for granted now, seeing Snipes on the street and seeing raps on the vans and seeing stickers everywhere. But a lot of that revolution was started in the early 90s, and our guest had a very extreme impact in developing that. And not to mention, I have to say that it'll be exciting to talk to kind of a lineage person, in terms of the fact that his very father, the great Jules Rifkind, who owned Spring Records, which home to Joe Simon and Millie Jackson and Fatback. His father released the very first hip hop single ever, which is, of course, is King Tim III by Fatback. You know that if the intro is 15 minutes long, I pray the show is 9 hours long. Welcome, Steve Rifkind, to Questlove Supreme.
I had time ago on that one.
I used to say if you guys could see Steve Rifkin's face right now, but
He is like,
we're the kind of
"Do I
show
need to
that
talk?"
this is the kind of show in which we're just finding out that we're on YouTube, or at least we haven't really pumped
We're on the show.
that fact up. So should I now say that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know this, but since what episode? What was our first? Tevin Campbell was our first?
Shit, was it? No, we goes further back than that. Jake, what was the first?
Oh, geez, what was it? Maybe Monica Lynch?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Wow.
yeah, if you go on
Listen.
YouTube, you can actually watch these episodes, and I pray that you don't, because we're a motley bunch. Lai is Glenn, but the rest of us, I don't know. Mr. Rifkin, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm great.
Yeah. Happy to have you.
I got to tell you a funny story. Wendy signed you guys, and she signed another artist. You know who that artist was, right?
The Jizza.
Jizza. So she calls me, because besides that, I had the Stephen Rifkind company, which had all the street team and the whole street marketing stuff. So she goes, "Hey, Geffen is having a conference. Will you come and speak?" And I'm like, "About what?" She goes, "About, the marketing, it's really a rock and roll label. And, we just signed Jizza, and we just signed, actually, I think she said she just signed you guys that day."
Yes, she did.
And I'm like, "But I need you to drive with me to Vegas." So I knew Wendy, but I really didn't know her that well. I'm like, do I really want to be in a car with her for 5 hours? But the amazing thing was, I didn't even want to hear Jizz's album. All I heard, you guys had like a 3 or 4 song demo.
Right.
And I kept it on repeat for 5 fucking hours. And then, so we get there, my uncle owns a restaurant. We have dinner at the restaurant. I go back to my room, and I'm amped. I was like, this is some groundbreaking shit. And I must have lost, in those days, I must have lost like $1,500, which to me was like $50,000.
Right.
I was just starting out. Listen, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I went to the crap table. And I don't remember the name of the songs, but it motivated me, and I ended up winning $5,000. I thought I won $1 million, all because of the Roots. So thank you.
Oh shit! All right, Steve Rifkin. Wait, I was going to ask you. All right,
So you would have signed them then? I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask from a fan's perspective.
No, I know.
no,
I would have signed them. I never had the opportunity to sign them.
Right, if you had the opportunity, right, because they were already signed. But
I will say that Loud was one of the 3 labels that we didn't go to, only because literally, I mean, I've said the story before, the Roots were going to sign to Mercury, to Polygram, and we were like super excited. Oh man, Black Sheep's going to be our label mates, da 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 da. And they gave us the contract, and 3 of the names were misspelled. So the contract was null and void because 3 names were misspelled, and they were like, send a new contract with our correct name spelled. And in that 72-hour period, Wendy Goldstein literally came in, swooped down, and we did the audition for Geffen because we wanted a free dinner. You remember Bookbinders on?
Yeah, that's
in
real nice,
Philly.
fancy. He's fancy. Yeah.
Right. By that point, we were like impressed with like, wow, they have orange juice in the refrigerator. Like, that's how impressed we were with. That was the first thing. Like, we went to Wendy Goldstein's office, and guess what? She had, Amir? She had orange juice in the refrigerator, all you can drink. And we're like, what? But literally, we were like, all right, we're going to do it for the free lobster and steak, and then we'll sign to Polygram. And just at the table, we literally were like, all right, let's call her bluff and just be like, all right, we need 2 cars, and we need like 3 apartments, and we want a full studio, and and a partridge in a pear tree. And she fucked around and called our bluff and was like,
Oh,
okay. And
Geffen money.
suddenly no other label mattered anymore, because like, it was like, shit, she's giving us everything we want. So it's been
who at Mercury was going to sign you?
Kenyatta Bell.
Oh wow.
Yo, the anger that he had for, I always wanted to know what happened to his assistant that messed up that contract.
Damn.
Like he was near, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, like near suicidal, but you know, I've talked to Ed Eckstein since that moment, and let's just say the building was not happy with losing the
Nah.
Roots on a technicality. But
So my cousin was head of sales, and this is when they had a sales department and they were record
Right.
stores. He was head of sales for Mercury, and I remember him. I didn't know that he was signing. I didn't know that he was supposed to sign with them. So
right,
he's my older cousin, and I really looked up to him. So I was telling him that, you know, I had to do this. I had to speak in Vegas to this rock and roll crowd, which, like, I mean, I was definitely talking a different language.
right.
And he goes, we were supposed to sign them. He didn't know exactly what happened, but he knew
Damn.
about you guys. I said, man, then you guys fucked up.
Oh, they were angry. They were angry. Well, wait, I gotta. I want to skip since we're talking this, and this is the thing that I wanted to ask you, because you know I know that, I mean, basically the first album and a half was made extremely, like, just unorthodox. We did not have a staff whatsoever at Geffen. All we had was Wendy Goldstein and like 7 credit cards, and so you know, we established trust with them where they were like, here are the credit cards, don't, you know, start traveling to Aruba or whatever, like be responsible. We were super responsible, but essentially we were calling out for favors from almost every label, you included. Like, you know, Steve Rifkind will handle street promotions and for at Def Jam, like Jessica and Derek will handle that at Def Jam. Like we were literally moonlighting every label for Do You Want More? And the thing was,
Didn't even know you could do that.
I don't, you know, it was just different back then.
Yeah.
But here's the question I have. So can you, and I want you to explain to me, because this is what I never got explained to me, at least the system of, like, you remember the periodical, I think that it was called Hits.
Mm-hmm.
It's the magazine. Yeah, they're still there. So now it's online. It's called
Hits is still a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I knew for us there was a system of you break in college first, and then after the college, then you break to mainstream radio. And the Roots released their first single the same, at least we were under the impression that we released the same time that Biggie released Juicy. Now, this is what I think happened. What I believed happened was that the buzz for Juicy was so big that they leaked it a week early, maybe like 2 days early. So the initial numbers of our first single, which I think was like Distortion of Static versus Juicy, was like, oh, we're gonna crush Biggie. But what I think happened was we had a full week, 7 days of ads on, whereas maybe like they decided to just, you know, leak Juicy a day early. So it was like a week of the Roots versus 1 day of Biggie. And we were just under the impression of like, oh shit, man, we're going to be kings of the world. Like we were like, that whole week, it was like whatever the equivalent of lighting cigarettes with lighting cigars with $100 bills and champagne everywhere. Only for the next week to come, and suddenly like Biggie's numbers were like in the 3 digits, and we were like at 38, like literally crushed. Can you explain the system of how, at least back then, and I'm not going to say start with Protect Your Neck, because that's just a whole nother animal, but say if you're doing Rainy Days, like a single that doesn't matter, how do you, not doesn't matter, but a second single, a single like Rainy Days, how do you break that first to explode, and what's the importance of college numbers?
So for me, I made my living off of college. So let's just go back to you for a second.
Okay.
Wendy was the only one who understood what I was working those records, because I was doing the whole street team. And
right, I know.
Because you guys were so alternative in the hip hop market. I said, just don't rush this. Let this just marinate and just have the guys live on the road. Don't worry about radio. Don't worry about anything. Have them just go visit colleges and maybe even some mix shows. And that's it. I mean, I never really even saw you guys. I didn't even see a video yet. But just sonically, what I heard, I was like, remember like Diggable Planets?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was that took 18 months to break.
Mhm. What?
Man, we forget this because
Yeah.
we forget.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, you know,
You're right.
and Stretch and Bobbito broke that record.
You're right.
You know, that was on a new label called Pendulum Records that was owned by Ruben Rodriguez.
Ruben Rodriguez. Yeah.
Right. So, and I forget who the head of promotion was. I think his name was Steve too. And I just forget who the head of promotion was. And I was like, you don't have to worry about radio. Let us just keep this at college radio. Brian Sampson, who was running the Gavin Report at college radio, was flipping over the music. And that's all we needed right this second. And they just wanted to take it to radio. And then, you know, it was what it was.
You know, it's weird. Now, of course, the second part of that story was like, we were like super depressed and thought like our lives were over and, you know, but now that 30 years have passed, it's almost like, you know, this tortoise and the hare journey that we took was worth it all, you know, to kind of still be here. But it's just, for me, I just never, because we weren't in the States, you know, we were living in Europe. So between like 93 and 98, I had zero clue of what the system was on how to jump in the double Dutch rope and thrive and survive, like that sort of thing. And, you know, because we were asked like, can we do Jack the Rapper? Can we do How Can I Be Down? Like all those things that we hear about. And we just always felt like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like we didn't even start meeting hip hop gods. Like, you know, we didn't even meet Wu-Tang until like 99 at that Great Day in Harlem shoot. That was
So
like
y'all
the
never
first...
did the convention circuit. Y'all never did Gavin, BRE. Like it was.
We were living in Europe. Wow. Just like our whole thing was like, well, you know, we're not going to be breakout stars in the States, so we better just like plant our seeds for longevity over here in Europe. And, you know, once by things fall apart, they were like, okay, you guys got to come home and actually promote this record, not like be there. But anyway, I digress. I do want to start from the beginning. Steve Rifkind, what was your very first musical memory?
My very first musical memory was, I was around 5 years old at the Apollo Theater watching the Jackson 5.
Wow. Do you know what year this was?
67, 68.
Yeah, this is like the third story. This is the third story we've had of people that have been at that particular Jackson's concert. In
no, I was with my dad. So my dad managed a DJ called Tommy Smalls. And Tommy had a club up in Harlem called Smalls Paradise.
Tommy Smalls from Harlem Nights? That's real? I'm sorry, I got excited. But Tommy Smalls was on Harlem Nights. I didn't know that was a real thing.
So before Frankie Crocker, Tommy Smalls was the most powerful DJ in urban music or R&B music.
Right.
And it was a station called WWRL, and it was based out of Jersey.
Okay.
So I don't know. I saw the Jackson 5, you know, on the Ed Sullivan Show, and then like 2 weeks later, there at the Apollo, and it was my first live show I've ever seen.
Oh, you had good seats.
We didn't have seats on the side. We were on the stage.
Of course, that's what I didn't want to assume.
How old were you when you recognized what your dad did?
Man.
And how did he lure you? I have the feeling that he kind of lured you into the business early, or without knowing, or trained you without knowing.
It was my grandfather. I was majorly dyslexic. I didn't know how to read or write until I was 14, 15 years old. Okay. So I was getting in a lot of trouble. And not that I didn't need to steal because I didn't need the money. You know, my dad had James Brown, you know, and he had Joe Simon, Fatback Band. So I was just doing it to get to attention. But it was really getting to a place where I was going to either go to jail or get killed. And my grandfather called me down to Florida, where all the Jews go. And he was in the nightclub business. And he said, he said, he goes, you got to get your shit together. He goes, you're going to end up dead or in jail. And he goes, why don't you do what your cousin Randy did? And then my cousin who worked at I go, what did he do? Because he goes to visit radio stations. I'm like, who am I going to do it for? He goes, your father. I go, my father wants nothing to do with me. He goes, and my father was partners with my uncle. And he goes, I'll deal with it. So like a week later, he calls the house. You know, there were no cell phones. This is 1980. And he goes, pick me up at the airport at 4:00. So I go pick him up at the airport. I go, where are we going? I thought I was going back to my house. He goes, no, we're going into the city. We're going to go see your father and uncle. And they pretty much sit me down. They say, you're going to go on the road for 3 weeks and you're going to go visit radio stations. So I'm 18 years old. And those 3 weeks turned to be close to 3 years, a little under 3 years, where I zigzagged all across the country. You know, I always had $10 worth of quarters. There were no cell phones. There was no GPS. I didn't even know how to read a map. I would just get a payphone, put in 50 cents, and call the next station. How do I get there from here? And I would write it down longhand. I wish I still had the book.
Really?
Yeah.
So radio promotions.
But yeah, there was no mix show. There wasn't anything at the time.
So
you know.
So you just so I'm clear. Now, you know, when I mentioned Spring Records, which is, you know, subsidiary of Polydor,
Yep.
was your father promoting all black acts on Polydor? Like, did this also include Mandrell and James Brown as well, or just strictly the Spring acts, like Millie Jackson, Joe Simon?
So James, my dad brought Polygram into the States.
Oh, so he gave James Brown his first offer.
Yeah. So what happened was Polygram, I think the president's name was Erwin Steinberg at the time. He goes, give us James under the Polygram logo, but you'll eat the way it's your label, where it's still signed to you.
So he would have been on Spring Records.
He would have, but it was like Polygram's first urban artist. So I mean, James performed at my bar mitzvah.
What? Yo, you can't skip that shit.
Not a long time. Not gonna lie.
Wait, 13 was what year for you? What year were you born?
I was born 62. It's February 1st, 1975.
Ah, damn, yeah, mustache, James.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you know, all right. That's cool. Wait a minute. I gotta ask. Has anyone from our documentary reached out to you yet?
No. What documentary?
Oh, okay.
But how would they? It's an interesting rabbit hole. Maybe that's a QLS kind of rabbit hole right there.
Shit, I gotta
make
call
that
my
call.
producers up.
Yeah.
Because this is super important. Well, no, I mean you're casually mentioning this, but I do know that the deal crafted in 1970 that took James from King Records to do you, just out of curiosity, do you know what at least what negotiations were just in terms of him leaving King? I never knew how he went from King to Polygram.
I was 8. I haven't, you know, they probably, so, you know, my dad was and my uncle, but my dad was really a special guy. Like he really, like, you know, he didn't see color. You know, you mentioned Jack the Rapper earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and, you know, Jack started off in radio and then he became like a promotion guy, you know, and Jack was really light skinned,
Right.
You know.
Yeah, almost,
and
yeah.
My dad, you know, and you know, and the hotels, you know, down south, you know, one would have to, you know, they wouldn't let black people sleep in certain hotels.
Yeah.
And you know, my dad would bring him into the hotel.
Wow.
So
But did they know he was black though when he brought him in? Because Jack could have went either way.
But the thing was this: if they did, there'd be 2 dead bodies. And my father, kept his, his guys.
Right.
Nobody was allowed to even go near the room.
So can I ask you, Steve? It's fascinating because you said so your dad has been on this side of, when did he start getting into music in this lane, like in this R&B lane? Was it your grandfather? Because you said your grandfather was also a part of your process.
So my grandfather owned a club called the Boulevard. So you had the Copa, which was like the highlight, the major player. Yep. But before you could even get a shot at the Copa, you had to kick ass at the kick ass at the Boulevard. And the Boulevard was in Queens, on Queens Boulevard. And so what happened was, my grandfather was somebody that you really didn't want to mess with. His 3 best friends were, pretty powerful guys.
Can you tell us some of the acts?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm always curious about the only person I know of this era that had muscle that often our guest talks about is Morris Levy.
Morris Levy, yeah.
But
Morris had a lot of muscle. But my grandfather was extremely close with Morris. But my grandfather would put you in a headlock and said, my 2 sons have to manage you.
Oh.
So Flip Wilson came out of there, Lola Falana came out of there, the Shirelles came out of there. I could call my mom and I could just, find out a whole bunch of
everybody.
Yeah.
According to you, what year did, quote, that level of business end and the what I dubbed the Starbucksification of it? Like, I don't know if you remember the episode of The Sopranos when those guys saw the first Starbucks and they tried to go inside to shake them down and then realize like, oh, this is like a corporate thing. This is not like just a local mom and pop thing. And this is when they realized that we just can't shake you down and do business like on our level. Like in your mind, and mind you, I know that you entering hip hop, I don't know how, as big as your label was, you didn't somehow fall into the crossfires of what was 92 to 98.
Well, they knew they couldn't do anything to me, right? So you're talking about the East Coast, West Coast thing.
Right.
So, we had to pass it. Don't forget, I had offices in LA and in New York. So, we made it clear from the get-go. We're staying out of it. We're minding our own business. And if we're going to get touched, people are going to get touched back.
So that's for all your roster too? Not just you, Steve, but like that was the roster.
Everybody. Well, no. Well, so like when Pac was my roommate.
Mobb Deep.
Like, yeah. So
right.
Right. So I marketed Pac's first record when he was just signed to Interscope directly. And he would stay with me. We would be on the road Thursday through Monday. And even though he was living up in the Bay, he would stay with me for those 2 days because we had a shitload of work to do. So, when that whole thing started, I'm walking into the House of Blues and he's there, and I got a bald head, and he smacks me in the head, but, and it stung. So I don't know if it's a love tap or a real smack, right? And he looks at me, he goes, "Look, you're not going to say hello to me?" I'm like, "Man, I don't know where I stand with you." And he goes, "Tell those 2 little ends that I'm just doing this to keep myself relevant. I love that shit."
Somehow I knew that.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew that.
Yeah. And we hugged, and like 2 weeks later, he was gone.
Oh. Shit. All right, we're zigzagging back and forth.
Wait, on that note, I do invite everybody to go to the Tupac. Have you been to the exhibit, Steve, out in LA, downtown?
Nah, I haven't been there.
It's beyond all notebook pages, all everything. I just want to say on that note, get to know your man's.
Yes, I've heard a lot about this.
Beautiful.
So for you, what do you consider really your true entry as far as like both feet on the ground? This is my entry into the music business. What marks that for you? Like what year, what project?
So it was 1983, maybe. And it was Jimmy Spicer, Dollar Bill, y'all.
Shit, that's right. That is on Spring.
Yeah, it was Russell's first deal. And then
Wait a minute. Is this the connection to? Is this how this makes it to Cream?
No, they just did that. I mean,
They just knew it?
I don't know if they knew it. I mean, when I heard it, I was like, holy shit. I mean, but but it was Jimmy Spicer and Fatback had a record called Spread Love.
Yes.
And then they had another one, but actually when you mentioned the second singles, but there was a record on the album called Is This the Sign of the Future featuring Jerry Bledsoe.
You mean, is this the future or?
Is this the future? Yeah, it's just the future. And
wait, that was you guys too?
That was Fatback, yeah. So.
Oh shit.
So
damn,
the first station I had to go to. So they wanted me to meet this old promotion guy by the name of David Clark.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 21 years old. Dave Clark is in his late 60s. And he's like an old school promotion guy, but one of the best promotion guys ever in the history of promotion.
Right.
And he calls me up and he says, we're going to have dinner with it was a radio station called WHRK, which was in Memphis. And we're going to dinner. And I'm saying to myself, this guy's 66, 67 years old. And he wants me to go to the club with him afterwards. And I'm like, I'm not going to the club. So I find the college. So it was the University of Memphis. And I forget who the DJ was at the time, but he takes me to the club. And there's Dave Clark with four of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, motherfucker. And but literally, that's how I ended up putting the whole street team together. I would, after going and visiting the program directors and music directors, doing what I have to do, I started building my own network at just at college radio. And that was always my foundation and my base.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm also just visualizing this in my head. And now this is making sense. All right. Okay. Look, we've had radio people, CEOs on the show before, and I've maybe dipped my toe in the water with asking these questions. So I'm going to ask you, under the guise that yes, I'm certain that the statute of limitations or the grace period has passed. Now, a lot of the times when this question gets deflected, it's usually like, oh, so long ago, I don't even remember. Okay. Take that Jimmy Spicer record in 1983. You don't even have to specifically mention yourself. But if I am a promotion guy trying to get that song played on the radio, what levels of negotiations do I have to stoop to get that played on the radio?
I mean, it really all depends how good a promotion guy you really are.
All right, so
Good
how
answer.
much?
Sounds like
how
a-
much juice? What juice do you have to use? And again,
So
whatever
I'm
story, whatever stories you can
Oh, yeah.
tell.
So I'm going to tell you a story,
Thank you.
right? Frankie Crocker at WBOS.
Yes, legendary.
Right. There was a club called the Garage,
Paradise Garage.
Paradise Garage, best sound
Yes.
system in New York, right?
Larry Levin.
Larry was the DJ. The club opened up at 6:30 in the morning,
Wait, what?
right? I mean, that's when people would leave whatever club and then they would go to this club, and it was a gay club, but with the best sound system in the world. And
Right.
Larry was such a trendsetter DJing wise. So going with Frankie one night. You guys you hear me?
Wait, you froze. You gotta say that again.
Yeah. Okay. So all right.
Okay.
So I go with Frankie one night. And
Okay.
What's that like? Oof.
well, I've known Frankie since I was 11 years old. Like when Frankie
Wow.
came home after the payola scandal, I think my dad and a few other people, Morris Levy and a few other people, threw him a party at Studio 54.
Control.
So he leaves me and he goes upstairs to the DJ booth and he's there for around anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes. So, in those days, the 12-inch, a record would be 10 to 15 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever Larry played, say between 6:30 and 7 o'clock in the morning, Frankie was going to add. So when I went back the following week, I was like, I just put two and two together. So I would call Wendy Goldstein and say, hey, I could get the Roots record added to BLS. Because I knew, and I'm looking at the time and I knew Frankie's up there, those three records would play. And I took a guess and it worked. And I was making a shitload of money. And I would, and it was like, people saying, how are you doing this? And then I realized, and I just kept it to myself. I didn't tell my father, I didn't tell my uncle, I didn't even tell Frankie.
Mm-hmm. So basically you knew to get product. So basically you're saying Frankie would use Larry Levin as his human Shazam.
As his eyes and ears, right? So everybody has eyes and ears. Like,
right.
What's that? So Larry was Frankie's eyes and ears.
So what I'm asking though is, did payola truly stop? And what was like the case that broke payola, like to the point where the feds got involved?
I mean, there were a lot of cases. There was something in the late 80s or the mid 80s on the pop side, but I never really, but I'm being honest.
I'm asking who would be the person that would snitch and say, hey, like, is it a label that can't get airtime or can't get play? And they're like, well, obviously they're playing Thriller every 12 seconds. So let's call the feds on. Like, it's almost like a DJ drama situation to me. Like, who has enough time to like make a phone call to the top of the pyramid to say, hey, we got to arrest blah, 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 because
me personally, I think it was markets that were probably not getting whatever they needed to get, and they were probably ratting out on the bigger markets. But you're right. Who has the time? I don't understand the rat mentality. So
it could be. I mean, it's only enough space, but so much space on a playlist. So
yeah,
if you taking up 5 slots, that's a problem.
Did you find it not like, I know there was a sort of a sea change in around 96, like once Clear Channel, once a new level of radio comes in which like they're now pre-programming songs way ahead of time. Like, what for you, what was the period in which your actual DJ, your personality, when did they lose their power? Like the Frankie Crockers of the world, the tastemakers.
Well, Frankie was the program director, so he never really lost his power. But
okay.
I think like you said, I think when the clear channels came in the world, when it became corporate, you were trying to ask earlier, it's like, when did the mob leave the music business, right? Or
right.
whatever. I think once everything started getting corporate, like when Vegas came and the major corporations started buying the hotels, boom. I think when major corporations started buying the major record companies, like when General Electric,
or Seagram's,
I think,
I get
it. So I think that's when all that shit just got cut to the wayside.
All right. So in your opinion, what's the better era? The mob era of the record business or the corporate era of the record business?
To me, the mob era, of course, it was more of a creative business.
You're right.
But then in mob era, it was a ceiling for people of color to be in executive positions and to make decisions and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, right? But then the other side of that is a lot of the creative, a guy like Crocker or even you. I mean, if you decided
like you could have been the person that broke the roots out.
No, that's
i.e.
true. And for radio people, it sucked. I mean, however, I will say it didn't suck for mixed DJs up until the aughts, because although corporate took over radio, mixed DJs could still do their little wiggle, 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 you know. So
Oh,
No,
and
I
sneak
don't.
the record in.
I mean, they still like the program directors still have to play this record. So and so has, you know, they had to come with records. I think the mix show guys lost their power too.
oh, they did. I just mean it was a middle and in between of what Amir was talking about with corporate. Yes, but then all of a sudden, mixed DJs had to play certain records that their PDs were telling them that they had to play. But I'm just saying, you also remember, if you think about it, Amir, certain DJs in Philadelphia, they was getting a couple dollars for the mix
Right.
show. Yeah.
Well, I'll say now it's a little exciting. I mean, I don't know how far what Funkmaster Flex is doing now,
Ha, interesting.
which is, like, to me, this is probably the best thing that I've seen Funkmaster Flex do during his entire tenure, like at Hot 97, which is basically challenge acts to, provide him with this. Okay, you complain I don't support you. Okay, you got 7 days to make a song and bring it to me.
Oh,
And it's really, at least the buzz of it now, at least from like my inner circle, cats are now like, it's almost like they have a reason to live. Like suddenly their antennas on high and they're like more excited to make music now because of the pressure of Flex called me out and I got to have a song in 7 days. So now
still a
it's-
thing? Wow. Okay.
no, it's buzzing. I mean, even to the point where, hey, we might get that call. Let's start getting our arsenal ready. Like that sort of thing's happening. So,
That's an interesting question for Steve, because I was man, it just makes me, it really reminds me of like when mixed DJs, like in every city there was a mixed DJ that was king, right? I mean, kind of in a way, right? Radio mixed DJ. So now I'm curious if Funkmaster Flex and people like that still have the same level of like pull influence that they used to. Like,
I think with Flex, I think his voice is still something. As you guys were just saying, if he's on Instagram and he's challenging everybody to put out a record, Buster just put something out the other day. He challenged Buster to put something out. So I think it's really just in your DNA, like in your personality. Flex, has always, been, he's brilliant. Like he's always reinventing himself. You got to take your hat off to him, for like doing what he's doing. He's making it. He's keeping himself relevant.
I hope this spreads like wildfire. Like we complain about the state of hip hop, but oftentimes like we're not challenged to really, bring it, because oftentimes it's just a survival game, for a lot of these acts.
No, you're right. But you know what? I challenge the executives too to start finding a new routes, and taking chances and get off your ass and be outside and find something new and exciting that in 30 years from now is going to have fucking longevity, that is still going to be relevant to something. And these executives today aren't doing that.
preach.
And that's coming from the top. I'm not even blaming them. It's all about a fucking TikTok and a number. I just revamped my dad's label. People say, and it's like, and my son is running the label. He's 27 years old, and I'm like, his name is Alex. I'm like, Alex, people still got to touch the fucking street, and they got to touch people. So find a fucking way where you can merge both. And that's what quality control did. That's what Top did, and it's like they still own the streets. And so the business doesn't really change. Words change, but people, what made the music business so great? People took chances.
I know about that initial period in '83. But once hip hop really truly gains momentum, what was your view on it? In terms of like what it was in the mid 80s to late 80s during that sort of that first golden era. What was your role in it?
I was just an independent promotion guy.
at the time. You know, the three, you know, there's the guy by the name of Hiram Hicks, who's from Philly.
Mhm.
Hiram.
Yep. And
Yeah.
we became extremely close. And, you know, he was extremely close to Mike Bivins from New Edition. And they were coming up to New York, and I wasn't on the road at the time. I was in New York, and he goes, "I'm going to be in town with Mike from New Edition." And I was like, "All right, cool, come by the office." And we came by, and I guess they were having issues with their manager. They wanted to fire their manager, and Hiram, myself, my dad, and my uncle, we started managing New Edition. That was like 85, 86.
So for the
So-
All for Love period.
Nah, they
Or
remember
the Cool It
I
Now.
tell you, we got involved with the Once in a Lifetime Groove single.
Okay. So right after
Was it 86?
the Cool It Now. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then when was the Any Heartbreak album?
87.
87, 88.
87.
So I moved to LA in 88. Was with managing New Edition.
Mhm.
And I hooked up with a label called Delicious Vinyl, which had Tone Loc and Young MC.
Matt Dyken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was Mike Ross, Rick Ross, and Matt Dyke. And then the Tone Loc video, I think, cost like $500.
Yes.
And there was a guy by the name of Rick Krim, who was
Yes.
Rick was at MTV, and he would just happen to be just a really good friend of mine, you know.
Okay.
And MTV was playing Just Rock shit, so I never had any business with him. And he called me up and he said, we're starting this new thing called Yo MTV. This wasn't daily, this was just weekly. This was with Freddie,
Mhm.
with Fab, right? I said, oh, it's funny that you said that, because I'm going to send you a video with this kid and see if you like it. And it was Tone Loc, you know, and they put it in Yo for 1 week, and then it went into whatever the word was, Buzz Bin or whatever.
Mhm.
And the record just took off.
All right. So you casually just dropping these bombs. Can you pre-loud, can you just name other projects you just happen
so,
to
I mean,
Forrest Gump your way
from,
into?
from 87 to until I sold Loud to 99. You know, the only records I never really worked with. I mean, I pretty much worked everything except for Death Row, and I even did some records for Russell and Puff. Puff did his own thing, but
Strictly
from, you know,
independent?
but shit, from Das Effects to EPMD to K Solo to Q-Tip and Tribe.
I need you to break down your whole, I'm sorry, Mir, I need him to break down your whole mind state of creating Street Team, because I'm fascinated from being at a radio station and them then turning their promo teams into street teams, and every other record company turning their situation. So tell me, please, your
Can
train
I
of
add on
thought.
to your question?
Yeah.
Because, you know, my introduction to what a street team person was, like when I first saw those protest signs and the snipes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know Renee McLean as well. So just in the idea of street teams. So you're saying that there was a time period before, like, what was the year that you consider street team to actually be like a flag planting moment? And are you saying that before then?
So I'm gonna tell you.
Okay.
For me,
Okay.
when did Brand Nubian Slow Down come out? 88?
90.
90? All right. So 89. Well, no, I would say 89. I took my last $3,000.
Mhm.
And I made these pamphlets. And I sent it to all the record companies. And I came to New York and I set up meetings with everybody. And I told them what we were going to do. We weren't going to focus on radio, because you said you came from radio, right? You weren't playing that many rap records.
Yes, yes, the people before me, 5 years before me, yes, but I got you. Yeah.
Right? So
Power 99, no rap radio.
Yeah.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I came back with $146,000 worth of business
Oh.
Pamphlet.
from the pamphlet. And it was just, and it covered everything. Like we empowered the mix show DJ, we empowered the college radio, and just, the barbershops, and it was just wherever there were a group of people, we would just go and attack and just word of mouth. And my philosophy is, even to this day, how many times have you read a review, if it's a record, a movie, a restaurant, whatever it was, that the review is straight garbage, but the shit was incredible. Shawshank Redemption.
Really?
I mean,
Bad reviews?
Yeah,
horrible reviews.
but still here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
So you're
So-
saying before that, like, because I can't imagine New York without seeing snipes of an album coming out or stickers everywhere
Yeah.
of all those things. So between
that-
you
that-
and
that-
Renee,
that
who
was-
was the first
that was-
to
That was early
really?
night. That was early night. But I'm gonna, the one when we did, I'm gonna give Fat Joe a lot of credit for
Okay.
this. So when we signed Pun, when you drove down the West Side Highway,
Mhm.
we must have spent $20,000 on posters. I mean, you're literally
Those black and yellows, right? It was,
from the bridge to fucking Basketball City.
why can I see those? I can see it.
I
That's,
can't
I mean, and that was Joe saying, this is what we got to do, and that was just my philosophy. It's like, I didn't grow up on the street. The street excites me. I mean, I grew up in Long Island.
All right.
So who am I to say no to somebody when they have that type of passion?
And the full concept of everybody wearing something similar to,
Yeah.
okay. And then
You
I'm sorry.
But like the head of my street team in New York
Mm.
calls me up one night, fucking ecstatic. He goes, I just wrapped the antenna of the Empire State Building. I'm like,
Say what?
and I'm like, the antenna of the Empire. I'm like, first of all, that's the dumbest thing. Like, I mean, you
can't
can really
see
take care of
it.
stuff, but it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard
Can't
because you
see.
can't fucking see it.
So on that note, then, have you had to bail people out of jail and stuff? Because sometimes street
Yeah.
teams go hard,
I was like
And
to
and,
say,
and then they fight each other. It was like
I mean,
you
when
violate the
you walk-
post no bills law.
Yeah, like when you walk into our office, like behind the receptionist, there was like 5 bail bondsmen, and a bunch of criminal attorneys pretty much in every city.
wow.
Wait a minute. It just hit me. The night, if you older Roots fans can remember the infamous old dirty bastard moment with the Roots at Irving Plaza. I believe that Irving Plaza was one of the first clubs to ban the Roots, not because of us in general or the fight between Old Dirty Bastard, but what's the thing when you get spray paint and then you
Tag.
lay a grid on the ground and then you spray paint it and then it's just
Stencil.
yeah. I remember that
Oh.
that there was a bunch of hell on earth. There was a bunch of Mobb Deep hell on earth
Oh, Steve.
stencils all over
Steve.
Irving Plaza, and
But there were also a bunch of Nike swishes too.
but no, I'm not playing. It was just like they were just like no more rapping or like they
I'm like,
actually,
Nike, Mobb Deep.
in terms of knowing the power that you have with this type of marketing, because essentially if you're in a car, you got about 2.9 seconds to just look to your right to see something and have it stick to your brain. Were you in terms like doing these snipes and doing this sort of level of street promotion, were you also like designing the snipes? Like, would you know that
Yeah. So
with
so
Big
we,
Pun that yellow and black will stand out? And
yeah, so we had our own art department. So I mean, they would be working 24/7, like, and they would just, until Joe approved whatever needed to get done, Joe approved it. But but with the street team, to me, everybody does their research now, and is it doing this, it's doing that. But like whatever city it was in, like we knew the most popular bus where the kids were going, from school to the deli or to, whatever it was. So that's the type of research that we would doing it. I didn't care about anything else. It's just where are the kids and where are the kids populating and where are the kids hanging out, you know, and that's really all I cared about. I didn't care about radio. Every time we came with a record, I would say, all right, if we get these 5 stations, we'll do 300,000. We get these 15 stations, we'll go gold. We get 25 stations, we'll go platinum. If we run the gamut, we're gonna go multi-platinum. I didn't give a fuck about that whole thing. All I care, you know, I have a corny saying, the streets don't lie. And it could be whatever. You could be on Rodeo Drive, Crenshaw, 125th Street, whatever it is. You know, you just got to find your base and your foundation.
That is
So with having this well-oiled machine establishing in the early 90s and whatnot, why step into starting your own label?
That's how
Why not like turn this into like the one thing you focus on and making that the
So I'll tell you.
juggernaut?
So it's a great question. So I think I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm doing a few $100,000 a year now. And I come back to New York. I mean, I'm living in LA. I come back to New York for my cousin's wedding. And there was a guy by the name of Jerry Aid from the Famous Artist Agency. And every time I came to New York, he would let me work out of his office. And he goes, I don't understand you. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, why don't you have your own label? Why the fuck do I want my own label? I'm good. Like, I would work till 3 o'clock, change, go to the basketball courts, play ball, go home, shower, eat dinner, go back to the office and send out my reports. So, you know, as we said earlier, my family really doesn't play. So he goes, well, we take this meeting with Paul Marshall. I'm like, yeah, Paul's my dad's lawyer. So, you know, Paul says I could get you this tremendous deal with BMG. I'm like, I'm good. I don't want it, right? So by the time I get to Rich Isaacson's apartment, who was my partner in that and my childhood best friend, my dad's calling. And he goes, I need you to come to the house. I go, I'm in the city. It's a 45-minute train ride. It's like, who knows what time the train's gonna come? He goes, I don't give a fuck. Come to the house now. And he was with, you know, some of his people, and you know, he was ready to beat the shit out of me. He goes, don't you ever turn down a fucking record deal. He goes, do you know the difference between a record deal or a label deal and what you're doing now? I'm like, no. He goes, what you're doing now, you're only as good as your last record or your last contract. With owning a record company, you have true assets. So even when you're not doing something, it could be making money. And it was probably the first time that we ever agreed on something. And it clicked into my fucking head. I was like, you know what? You're right. And I said, you know what? I'm going to call Paul in the morning and I'll go see him. He didn't believe me, knowing how fucking crazy I am. Mm-hmm. So he called Paul. He says, we'll see you at 2 o'clock. And, you know, and that's how Loud pretty much started.
I was just curious, your father, since you guys, I was wondering what he thought about hip hop.
My dad put out his first hip hop record. But my dad never considered himself an A&R guy. He never considered himself an A&R guy. He just considered himself a promotion guy.
That's right. I forget about the business.
You know, and he just truly loved people. And he didn't see color. He didn't see any, you know, it's like our house was like United Nations.
Right. So you guys, it was a nice evolution. That's what I kind of mean for your family. Like you were the perfect kind of evolution.
I mean, Sharpton lived in our house.
Mm. So with the first act you signed was Twista, correct?
Yeah.
So it's always curious to see flagship artists on these big labels. Like, you know, I'm just finding out that Rico Suave was the first act on Interscope.
Interscope, yeah.
What was it about Twista? And actually, for me, I think the first thing I heard about Twista was like a beef with Tretch from Naughty by Nature. Like what was it about Twista that attracted you to him? Again, that said, I can sell this, or was it just like, it's dope and let me put it out?
So the record was called Mr. Tongue Twister, and my staff was losing their mind, and they were comparing. I forget who the lead guy was. Poor Righteous Teachers.
Wise Intelligent.
Right, Wise Intelligent. Yeah.
Right, and they were comparing him to that, and just it was my first act that I ever really, you know, I was like, all right, this could be something that's special. So, and that was the first act that I brought to BMG. And we found it through my street team. And there's a guy by the name of Jack Sterling. He was our Chicago street rep. And he sent it to a guy by the name of Faye Duvernay, who was doing my college radio and mix show. We were starting to call mix show. And he was managed by a DJ in Chicago on GCI by the name of Eric the Wiz. I flew him out, and we did a deal, and I had something to show BMG.
Let me ask you, why did you choose BMG? Because, you know, for me at least, I never considered RCA as a front runner in urban music like the way that Columbia was, or I mean maybe Warner with Tommy Boy. But was it the fact that they had no track record whatsoever and they offered you space to?
I didn't even look at that. I just had so much confidence in myself. You know, when I first was going there, was a guy named Lou Malia who had Zoo Entertainment that BMG financed. It was supposed to be a new company, and Twista was the only thing that really came out of Zoo, and they shut Zoo down. So then a guy named Ron Urban, who was a finance guy, who was the CFO and CEO of RCA. He was in Atlanta visiting this attorney, Joe Katz, and it was Jack the Rapper. And we came in, and I just took a liking to Ron. And he says, you know, I say it now. He goes, you give me an inch, and I'll give you whatever you need. So, and it was like, how much heavy lifting are you going to need from us? I'm like, I'm not going to need you guys to do a fucking thing. And, you know, we were already staffed up through the marketing company, you know, and then we got lucky. There was somebody who worked at RCA who became like, he became my brother, pretty much a partner. You know, a guy named Mojo Nicosia, and Mojo ended up after a year and a half at RCA. He's been with me ever since.
Okay.
Because what were your I'm curious what your expectations were, or I guess, yeah, what you told them to expect from this record, in the sense of
Twista record. So
yeah,
the deal was, I didn't want a penny from what they had to do was just give me money to make the album, and I think the album budget was $50,000.
okay.
I'll handle all the marketing money, and then once I get it to 100,000, you got to give me a few $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, were you trying to figure out how to position yourself next to a Def Jam, a Tommy Boy, a Jive, or were you just going to be so underground you were the Abyss?
Once you really get to know me, it's like you're running a race. You can't worry what the next person's doing. Like if you look over your shoulder, you're going to trip eventually. Mm-hmm. So okay. Russell had Def Jam, Jive had Jive, and Barry and Clive. I mean, Clive called it had to be the smartest guy in the record business. I mean, he took everybody, when he sold. But I never looked at it that way, and I looked at them as allies because they were still paying me to work their records. So as long as I kept,
and there was never a conflict of interest at all.
I had to, no. I mean, if you know me, it's like I'm going to be a straight shooter. Like if you're going to pay me, I'm going to do the job. And if I can't do the job, I'm not going to take your money.
And here's a question: since you work in their records too, do you have an ear now to say to people, to other labels, like, I know I can work this on college and mix, but commercial, this is a more college mix record, like, how does that work?
So by this time, pretty much we were on retainer with every major. I mean, I was making more money with the marketing company than I was making with the label. Right.
So they listening to you.
So like we would be part of their staff, and then finally they were saying, why are we paying, them so much money? Some of the retainers, got dropped and people started putting departments in place, but they were still, everybody pretty much all came under my umbrella. Mm-hmm. So like Fade, who was one of my first employees, he went over to Interscope and he actually came with the Loud name. So when Interscope cut the retainer with me, Fade would still put me on certain records, so okay. I just had everybody in place.
All right, I'm dying to ask you to get into Wu-Tang territory, but I
Okay.
can't forget. What was it about? And I think it's also notable to point out that in the early '90s, suddenly the regionalism of hip hop is expanding more. Of course, we saw like the Ghetto Boys and Rap a Lot in Houston have like really go mainstream in the '90s, and then suddenly, like we're realizing that California has good MCs and this territory in Atlanta and that sort of thing. For you though, with the signing of the Alkaholiks and Madcap, especially Madcap, I was one of those people that I saw like a Madcap show, and the Madcap was like, just listening to that tape, and I listened to that tape so much, like they were like a mixture of, they were kind of the idea of what I thought, because even in 92, 93, I didn't know what the roots were going to be.
So the reason why you like Madcap so much is because of Joe, the trumpet player.
Right.
And he was live.
Right. But also, I mean, like there were live elements on that record.
Yep.
And again, we were just starting our first record, and we weren't in full agreement on whether or not what we were in concert should also be the same thing that we're on in the studio. Actually, I was against it. I'm like, we don't want to be a band in the studio. Like, let's be a regular rap group. But I heard the Cap record, and I was like, oh, all right. Between that and what the Far Side was doing, then I was like, okay, I see an entry there. But for me, or you at least, like, why were they just too early for their time?
I think they were a little bit too early for their time. And then, they had two records that I thought could have been the first single, The Kit and Caboodle, produced by Broadway, and then
Right.
the second record, Proof in the Pudding, which was, a lot of live instruments. I think, of course, the only one who really had and they were from Pasadena. They weren't from South Central. So even though Pasadena was a tough fucking area, it still wasn't South Central, and South Central was already branded, right? So Easy had a lock on all that. So it wasn't gangster music, right? I mean, it was more hippie music. And and I tell this to Broadway. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I tell this to Broadway all the time. If there was a hook in the whole Kit and Caboodle, that record would have been a fucking monster.
You're right.
But the great thing now is Coke, who was in the group, is a huge director now.
Really?
Yeah, huge movie director. Like, does these amazing urban films, and he finances them himself, and he just, he runs the board. I mean, it's fucking amazing what he's doing.
Well, then let me ask you about the Alkaholiks, because that was also an era in which we had our idea of what LA was. And then groups like the Far Side, the Alkaholiks, groups like Souls of Mischief, way up in the Bay Area, and the whole High Road crew. Like, we didn't know, it was like an anomaly. Like, when we first heard the Alkaholiks, we were like, wait, they're from California?
Yeah,
exactly.
Sounding like this. How did you come across there?
So Fade went to see. He went to the studio to see Madcap, and E Swift was there. Right. And Fade just shows up at my house like at 11 o'clock at night, like pounding on the fucking door. He's like, I just found, best thing, since white bread, and it was just like, you got to come to the studio now. And I'm like, I'm not going to the studio. I didn't believe it. To me, I didn't really believe in the studio, because I needed, only bad shit happened in studios. So I was like, nah, like they'll come, they'll come in the office in the morning or whatever. And just, it was a Friday, it was a Thursday night when he came pounding on the door, and they came up, their original demo, to me, I thought they were the next EPMD.
Dude, nothing. I can't even, like, I wish I could just bottle up, like, when you're living in it, you just take for granted that this sort of brilliance is just going to be the norm. So you know, you don't take a time out to really appreciate it. But yeah, nothing will ever beat the feeling of, you know, I come from Philly, in which you know, Cosmic Kev, AJ Shine, Just Def, like, basically our version of Stretch and Bobbito at Drexel University would play that whole album insanely, like, just on radio. And
I mean, the West Coast loved them, but again, it wasn't NWA, it wasn't Dre. Snoop was just coming, right? So, but they had Ralph did a lot of their videos.
Wow.
Wait a minute. Okay, this is a crazy off kilter question, but only because I'm okay. Yeah, I'm working on Soul Train right now. To get the Alkaholiks mainstream Soul Train play, and Don's like notorious for not, like, literally, like, I think I've counted 3 dance lines to Make Room, which is just unheard of for, like, a real rap song that potent to get, like, almost that level of love. I was like, when the Alkaholiks were, like, regularly played on Soul Train, which a group of that level should have just been underground status and maybe some MTV love or that sort of thing. But
this Shamar Moore Soul Train, Amir?
No, Don Cornelius era.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I'm like,
we
how
knew
how
the
did you
booker.
guys pull this off?
We knew the booker, and Don truly loved the record.
Huh?
Yeah, it's just unheard of. It's unheard of. All right.
Don't forget, Make Room was even though they were from the West Coast, it was a non-threatening record. They didn't really curse on the record.
I know. Like,
so
they were
I mean,
humorous,
like that.
they were funny,
so and
the
that's
production was awesome.
That's what Don like.
I get it.
Can I just ask real quick, Steve, at
Oh.
this point, are you developing, what is the loud philosophy? Like, because you like you said, you ain't Def Jam, you ain't Jive. We all know this. We know we went to loud for certain things, but, like, in your mind, what is it?
So I didn't really have an A&R staff yet. So to me, Madcap was self-contained. Alkaholiks was self-contained. And we did okay with them. Twista wasn't self-contained. And, you know, even though he broke, you know, we did, marketing-wise, we did an amazing job. We flew in the guy from the Guinness Book of World Record from London.
Right,
I
remember that.
We had him on MTV, and they timed him. He was, you know, voted the fastest rapper in the world. But really, you know, it wasn't an amazing album. So I needed people who could really be self-contained.
Right.
Okay.
Right?
That said,
that's the commonality.
And
that said,
and then from that, Wu-Tang, self-contained.
Segue.
Okay.
Mobb
That
Deep,
said,
Okay.
now let me ask you,
We're here.
knowing what you know now of the past 30 years of Wu-Tangology, would you have struck a different deal with the RZA? You still would have just given them their running papers?
I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
30 years. Me and RZA still talk 2 or 3 times a week.
It matters.
Right? I will never fight over money. So by me, I was in survival mode. I needed that plaque. I needed a gold album, right? So I met them on March 3rd, 1993, a day after my 31st birthday. I was with East Swift. I was with East Swift from the Alkaholiks. We're in New York. I'm in a guest office in New York, and the receptionist comes. You know, in those days there was no security, right? You know, you just pop up at a record company.
Not like Def Jam. Okay.
Right. And they said, Prince Rakeem is here. I've been trying to chase him down since the beginning of the year. And he shows up, and it's me. So he's talking. He goes, "I have the guys downstairs." Now I don't know if there are 3 guys, 9 guys, whatever it is, but I'm in an office as big as the fucking square on my Zoom right this second, right? And East Swift is behind me, and they perform "Protect Your Neck" live to the record. Somebody comes barging into the room and says, "That's that shit." I don't know if he was in the mailroom or RZA set me up, right? And he left. And he left. I never saw the guy again. But the energy in that fucking room was ridiculous. And RZA said, "This is the only way we're going to do the deal." And I was like, you know what? I was managing New Edition. Ralph was always threatening to leave, and the only one where the group to me was always bigger than the
BBD.
solo artist, except for Michael Jackson. But even when Michael Jackson toured, when it came time to do a Jackson tour or the Jackson 5 or whatever they were called at the end, they still outdid Michael's tour.
Wait, damn. Now that you
He's
said
got a
that,
good point.
I wanted to ask, because even at the Essence Festival this year, I was like, this might be the rare case in which Tito is more successful than Michael. How did that affect Ralph? At least during that time, I know I don't know when you left New Edition, but you were there for Heartbreak, in which when they came to you with the idea of like, hey, we're going to do our side project with Poison, were you guys like,
no,
okay,
I was already out. Hiram was still.
All right, you were out. Okay, I got it.
Hiram was, but I was there when Mike called me and said, "We want to put Johnny in the group." So if Ralph ever leaves, we have a lead singer.
Okay, so it was like that.
But at the end of the day, like I just always believed the group will still always be bigger than the whole. And the truth of the matter is, he let me still have matching rights. You know how much that album cost us?
Cheap.
Not a lot.
$60,000.
60 grand. Yeah, I read that.
Right? So how many albums you think I sold between Wu-Tang Forever and 36
I get it.
and
One.
Raekwon's album?
I get it.
And you're not the bad guy. Like I just remember in the
Wait a
show.
second. And I still had the best solo album out of all of them.
I know, but all right, but
ODB,
look,
right?
but again, I'm just saying that this is lightning in a bottle. You literally have super friends. And yes, I agree that when the smoke is cleared, Cuban Links is probably, I almost feel like I know that we can't say anything bad about Into the Wu-Tang, but for me, like, Cuban Links is the pinnacle Wu-Tang project.
100%. Everybody agrees. I mean,
But
that should
part
have
of
been
you-
that should have
part
been
of
the second album.
Part of you wasn't a little bit greedy, like, let me take Dirty, or
Nah,
at
Dirty.
least get
First of, all,
Method Man.
first of all, Dirty was already signed, and
Mhm.
but
You gotta watch the
this is where my head's at, and this is my thing. I still made money, right? Because when Dirty was signed to Elektra, I still had the marketing company. Elektra paid me triple what I normally got.
Okay.
Geffen paid me triple what I normally got, right? So I was good, and like I said, I'm not going to fight over money, and I'm not greedy, right? So I did okay, and I feel I won, and it made Loud what it was, and it gave me the reputation that the artist came first. You forget, I also got arrested fighting for them.
Whoa, what happened?
Wait, I'm trying to remember. I remember. This sounds familiar. Go ahead, tell us.
So renegotiating Ray's first album, Cuban Links, and Wu-Tang's second deal and second album. They came in to renegotiate. And I'm supposed to be on RCA side. But before that even happened, me, RZA, his lawyers, and my attorney, we came in and we're going to do this together. I haven't gotten paid yet. I'm making my money through the marketing company, right? We're at like 1.5 million records sold now, and the business affairs, she was a woman, is holding still for $20,000, and I'm like, and Bring the Pain is blowing the fuck up, and I'm like, just give him the $20,000 or I'll write a fucking check. Like, I'll figure out a way to get him the $20,000. I never hit a woman in my life to this day, you know, right? But she says, go fuck yourself, Steve Rifkind. And we're in the 36th floor conference room. I take this chair and I'm ready to throw the chair through that window that's going to break the window and it's going to land on somebody on Broadway. I catch the chair, I dislocate my thumb, I turn around and I throw it through the glass door in the lobby. And they called the cops. Cops came, arrested me. It was a Friday. I just found out I was having my first child 3 days before that. And
Damn.
that's and
Shit was intense.
Damn.
but you know, and then don't
You're a
forget
rider.
right. There was no email. So this was literally, I sent them a voicemail. I sent them a call. I was in Florida for Thanksgiving. And Method Man just did 120,000 first week.
Mhm.
No, you know, like those numbers were crazy. I was like, you just fucked yourself. Like, and RZA wouldn't sign the deal yet until, you know, and I went off and it just created a war between me and BMG. But the thing was, RZA says, don't worry, we're gonna come back in February and we're gonna take them for every fucking penny they have. And they ended up getting a new CEO and a new president. And we came in and we put him in a fucking headlock and we took him.
Did just that.
We took him for every fucking penny they had.
Okay, so I will say that my first listen to that album.
36 Chambers or Cuban Links?
Oh, 36 Chambers. You know, the day that we signed our deal with Goldstein was November 11th. The day that album comes out. And of course, you know, everyone knows that Tribe, Midnight Marauders, and
November, no, the album came out November 9th.
Okay, I'm sorry, November 9th. I knew it was one of those dates.
Mhm.
So the day that both Marauders and Enter the Wu-Tang comes out, and we're driving up 95 from Philly, listening to this, and you know, I know not since Prince's fan base with the album Dirty Mind have I heard what I deem like revision on an opinion of the record. When I first heard the Wu-Tang record, and not that I was looking from like a commercial standpoint or an underground standpoint, but I just never heard something so dirty in my life, like even more dirtier than the Jungle Brothers. And I don't know. I just like, this is way too underground for regular people. And yet it almost became the pinnacle of it's weird. It's like they became the epicenter and the mainstream of the system that they were against, which, you know, I wasn't complaining.
Did they?
I mean, they were a rock and
Dude,
roll.
Wu-Tang still has power.
Oh yeah, they do, but I just mean they still are Wu. They still not looked at as.
I don't mean like in a four-letter word way, like they're mainstream, they're Christian.
Right.
No, but I'm just saying that there's no way you're going to tell me on that first listen that this group
I'm with you.
was going to be the alpha and the omega and the epicenter of what.
But let me ask you a question. Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah.
When you heard Cream and Can It Be for the first time.
Well, yeah.
What I remember hearing Cream for the first time in the studio.
It's the singles.
Right.
The singles. Oh, y'all. Oh, them
Right.
Yeah.
That I knew. I mean, I knew actually before because I was on the road. I moved to New York, and I opened up a New York office, and I took an apartment in New York, and now I was by coastal.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, when Cream came on, and forget about the part with Mess on the Hook with Dollar Bill and what that meant to me or whatever.
Right.
But I just knew that this album, there was something fucking special about it. Then 3 months later, my office in LA was on Melrose and Kings Road where Cookies is. Literally, the building where Cookies is. And I'm going to the deli to grab a sandwich, and I see this white kid head down to here on a fucking skateboard with the old Wu-Tang Scully singing Wu-Tang Clan, not to fuck with. And I knew, Gecko, I said, at my age now, I'm 60 years old now. I said,
Right.
when I'm fucking 60, they're still gonna be around.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my mind, it was just like, again, I got to go back to the first Jungle Brothers record. Like the Jungle Brothers first album, Straight Out the Jungle, was just like an inside secret for like real heads. Meanwhile, like mainstream America only feels Hammer, Vanilla Ice, like more, mainstream rappers. And
Can I ask you one question though?
yes.
Jungle Brothers was on Tommy Boy, correct?
No. That's De La Soul. Jungle Brothers was on Warlock and then went to Warner Brothers for the second album.
Okay.
And I was just like, just to me, once Cream started picking up traction, I was like, wait a minute. This is almost like if Straight Out the Jungle by the Jungle Brothers really got a chance. Now, I mean, there's a lot of factors into the success of Wu-Tang Clan, but what I was basically leading up to was, upon first listen of that entire record, you knew you had lightning in a bottle in your possession.
Yeah, I knew we had lightning when Outkast was throwing a party. When did their album came out? The summer of '93, correct?
94.
I know. I was at a party, an album release party. I was with Steve Stapp.
Okay.
And the Emmy, I think Clark Kent was DJing,
Mhm.
and the METHOD record came on, and we're talking, and all of a sudden everybody just went straight to the dance floor, and losing their fucking mind. And that's when I knew that it was like my first, like I needed to see it with my own eyes, right? And that's why I like to be outside. So it was like, we can go like, I'll tell you a story about MOP and Annie Up, later on. But at the end of the day, like when I see something with my eyes, and that's what made me move to New York and open up shop in New York. And then you remember the New Music Seminar?
Yes.
Right. Then I said, Clark, let's find a club. It was area. And they let me do a showcase with the Licks, Twista, and Will. And all of New York showed up.
Shout out to G too. Wu-Tang's trusty, one of their many street team people that I've associated with. G used to be part of the Princeton hip hop circle that,
Princeton.
yeah, but he would also work the Philadelphia market. Like RZA would have like his side guys or I don't know if G was part of Rifkin's street promotion team or RZA's personal people, but that's how I got hip to them. All right, so I have to ask you the other side of the coin too, because a big part of my personal success was also being the guy on standby whenever somebody would mess up, i.e., blah, blah, blah is not going to make it to the show. Can you guys get here in 12 hours? Just dropped out. Yo, can you guys fly in next week? And literally at the beginning of Wu-Tang Forever, I swear to God, at least 60% of my entire output of doing shows were based on Wu-Tang shows not attended. During the period of,
so are you talking about the
97.
Wu-Tang Rage? You talking about the Wu-Tang Rage Against the Machine tour, or
starting then, but just basically, like the Roots might as well have been, the 12th member of the Wu-Tang Clan, because literally is like, Wu's supposed to come or whatever designated Wu member was supposed to show up, and okay, we'll get the Roots instead. So for me though, in 1997, and I have my theories about this. What are your feelings on Wu-Tang Forever?
it was a double album,
Right.
and
But did you get goosebumps?
on certain songs?
All right.
The album, I mean, it was a double album. So, like I said, I never considered myself an A&R. I got Goosebumps on Triumph. I got Goosebumps. I've got
That's
the name
right.
of the record. It's Yours.
Yeah.
And there was one, and there was one more record which I would have, where I really got goosebumps. But at the end of the day, I put that tour together between Wu-Tang and Rage. Right. And you know, we it was the first $1 million hip hop video. Brett Ratner directed it.
Yeah. Look, no, nothing against Black. I don't, from my perspective, that, okay. So first of all, I feel like the strength of Triumph was that it was the first offering. I mean, you know, it could have been like, name any other song that it could have been dog shit, the song, not actual dog shit. I mean, it could have been Reunited. It could have been whatever the first song from that album was going to come forth was going to be.
Reunited was the song that gave me goosebumps. It's Yours, Triumph, and
right. Why didn't Reunited? To me, the opening Reunited.
I mean, Riz's verse, you know, was ridiculous in that. I mean, because they started fighting. So let me just tell you where I am. Right.
Right.
Biggie passes a few months before that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me and Puff had conversations before Big passed. Who's going to come first? Wu or Biggie? And we were both coming with a double album. So Big was always going to come first.
Right.
Because we weren't having radio records, right? So we have Brett do the video. And like you said, whatever the video was, the video was. But to me, they were a rock and roll group, or they were a group, right? So the Rage tour was right. We sold 8 million records on that album. If they finished that tour, right? Because we started in Florida and we were coming up to New York, so that was already home base. Like, and sales were going up. Now we were going to do the bumfuck, you know, like the mid Indiana, like the Midwest and West Coast. That album would have sold 20 million records, and that was always my plan. If we ended up,
it should have went diamond. I agree with you. It should have went diamond. I don't know the exact conditions. I don't, you know, I know it's a fire. I always felt like, whenever someone gets a good formula and they change it, I wish they didn't make that record in California. I wish they would have stayed.
Well, the problem was, if you saw the show, Riz's house got flooded. Everything was destroyed.
Right.
So he had to start from scratch anyway. And with everybody having solo record, I understand what you're saying. But with everybody having solo records, in New York, you're being pulled 10 different ways. Everybody's being pulled 10 different ways. They all went platinum. Jizz went platinum. Ghost went platinum. Meth went platinum. Ray went platinum. So it's like them being in one house together and to create that unity, how they had it on the first album. Granted, it wasn't Shaolin and it wasn't in a basement.
Right.
Right. But the house got flooded and everything was destroyed.
Can I ask though? I kind of feel like the end of that reign.
You went in and out.
Kind of not the end of that reign, but at least the stronghold of that initial period was the Hot 97 situation. With
that was a bad situation. I was on my
could you have rectified that situation, or like how do you, in terms of, are you the type of CEO that has to talk to the artist to stop them from sabotaging their progress or whatever? Or so like, could you explain the story of that whole Hot 97 situation, and then like Hot 97 not playing Wu-Tang anymore? And
I was on a plane. It was my bachelor party.
Okay.
I was flying from Dallas to Atlanta. And you know, we land, and my phone's blowing the fuck up. But you know, I have all pretty much my senior executives with me.
Right.
You know, was my brother was a partner, my best friend, my childhood best friend Rich, you know, was a partner. Mojo, who's, you know, became a brother and running promotion. You know, they were all with me, and I'm getting, you know, this is when everybody had the, you know, not even the 2-8, just the pages still. And like, what the fuck's happening? And I couldn't get Riz on the phone, and then Tracy, who was the program director at Hot 97, just called me. I'm getting married in 4 fucking days. Like, called me and just says, "Go fuck yourself." Like, you know, just like, I mean, if she was a dude, we would have went to fist, right? And
But she didn't know that you'd personally like.
she was venting. Like,
Right.
I don't even think she was so mad. I don't even think she went to the wedding, and she was invited to the wedding. Don't forget, Wu-Tang was the first rap record that Hot 97 fucking played. They were a dance station.
Right. Wait, Hot 97 was also on that no rap workday.
Right?
Yeah.
More music, less rap. They were on that?
No, they weren't a rap. I mean, no, Hot 97 was a dance station. Like,
Right. Okay.
and then Flex was, I mean, between Flex and Angie, they're the ones that took it to a whole different place where Flex had a show on the weekends, you know, and then thank God, you know, and then thank God, you know, Puff came with Flavor in the year, and there was some, you know, and then finally, you know,
Right. It was
and he was
undeniable.
making those records, like, so thank God for him, 'cause, you know.
So it was absolutely unrepairable. I guess for our listeners that are hearing, I guess you know, they're doing Summer Jam, and
You know,
I don't
and
know if it was Ghostface or I forgot
Well,
who
it
said
was
something
Ghost.
out of line. Fuck Hot 97. They don't play our
Well,
shit.
Well, you know, listen, let's keep it 100. There was 75,000 fucking people there,
Right.
right? They're making a fortune. So we were on tour with Rage, right? And at the end of it, we weren't getting paid a lot of money yet.
Right.
Yeah.
This was still really a Rage tour, and Ghost, you know, should he have said it? No, but
I'm about to say that don't help with your argument though, Steve, with Tracy. That
And
don't, it's still like
just to be clear, artists do not get paid for doing
for promo
summer
shows.
jams.
but
Right.
now they get, you know, they started getting paid a few years ago. Not a few years ago,
yeah.
a few years after that. They were getting paid big dollars.
I see.
Imagine Nicki Minaj not getting paid these. What? Yeah, for Hot 97. No.
Well, no, I mean, but just black artists in general, just, you know, you just
Those radio promo
are so in
shows.
depth to black radio that you, yeah, I'll do it for free, you know, as long as you keep playing my records.
Yeah.
But so there was literally absolutely no
She, for a while,
mea culpa, no.
so for a while, they even banned all loud records.
Yeah, this is a thing, Pete. But this is what was happening too, right, Steve? At the
why
time
they
when an
taking
artist
it
would do
from
something
you?
wrong. That's what.
I mean, me and Tracy were friends. Who else was she going to take it out of?
Right. But you know, Amir, this happened in Philly with Beans. Like it. It happened. It happened with Foxy Brown with Def Jam when she cussed out Kobe, and they said we ain't playing these records for a minute. Like that, it feels like an
I
error.
did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
So with actually, you mentioned Puff. I was going to ask with the opening sketch of side 3 or side 2 of the Purple Tape of Raekwon, when they kind of, you know, draw a line in the sand with Bad Boy and Wu-Tang, i.e. the, you know, I guess by that point in 95, Bad Boy was establishing himself as more of a mainstream, middle of the aisle.
They were. I mean, no. I mean, look, we got to give credit where credit is due. I mean, Puff had everybody. I mean, he had the world in the palm of his hands. He was coming with hit after hit, and you know what Ray or Ghost said. I mean, you know, me and Puff spoke. He goes, "What was that about?" I said, "I don't know. You know, I have no idea." But I go, "Let's just keep it." You know, like we're in two totally different lanes. We're not even in the same freeway. Like, I'm just using New York. Like, we're on the Northern State, they're on the LIE. And it's just like, I'm not trying to compete with Puff. It's
Thank
two
God.
different things. He's making radio records. We're still making records for the street. And I'm not like, I'm trying to help Puff get as much as he possibly can. Like, so, and they worked it out a few months later. So
I always wanted to know what the response was, because when
Suge said "fuck New York" or whatever the hell he said at the Source Awards,
right,
that's when they all reunited again, right? And that was like 2 weeks after we came out with the album.
Wow.
So
were you there for Hip Hop's funeral?
Infamous.
I was there.
No, I wasn't there because my son was just born, so I pretty much was taking
Thank God
that summer off.
not there.
Hey, Steve,
Right.
can I ask a question real quick about these records? Since you had such not made for radio records, but yet and still, it seems like you got to a stride where y'all were picking like amazing singles. What was the math?
I had the best A&R staff to this day.
And who was that person? Okay.
No, there was a team. It was a guy by the name of Matt. It was a guy by the name of Matty C, who actually discovered Biggie. He worked at
Matty C. Yes.
Right. It was a guy by the
Matty
name
C
of
of the
I remember
Source.
yes, I remember that name. Yes.
Right. Scott Free started off as my assistant, and he got himself into A&R quickly. Stretch Armstrong, who had the Stretch and Bobbito show. And then
Stretch was doing
A&R.
loud A&R.
Yeah. And then
Stretch was picking radio hits.
He was the first one. And then the guy by the name of Sean C came.
Yes.
Sean C. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
All right. So speaking of Matty C, Mobb Deep. I remember getting Shook One's Part 1. How in the world did you guys manage to, on the second go round, again, capture lightning in the bottom? Like
the street team. So I was saying the streets don't lie. The record was cool. It did what it was supposed to do, but it wasn't a fucking smash. And we came in there, and I said, Matty, what are we gonna do? We're cool, but this is not gonna drive anything home. And he goes, matter of fact, Havoc just did a remix last night. Here it is.
And you heard it.
And we heard it. And I was on my way to How Can I Be Down?
Another good one.
I was on my way to How Can I Be Down? And I had a Walkman, not even a Discman. I had a Walkman, and I was in a car with Stretch and Bobbito. And I was me and Bobbito, I used to play basketball, and there was like some type of celebrity game. And they lost their mind. And they were the first one to play it. They played it. We gave it to Flex. This is September, October, and then when we came back after Christmas, it was the biggest record in New York.
So, but I'm saying in your mind, it wasn't like, oh well, that didn't make it. All right, what else you guys got? Like,
no,
I think another A&R or CEO would have just been like, oh well, that's stillborn. So what else is down the pike? But
nah,
it's just unheard of to
when they
resuscitate a song like that.
Well, when they came to the office, I knew they were the perfect, like, Wu is your first child, and I got my first check and my first plaque and everything else like that. But when you give a jab, you got to come with a cross or a hook right away, right? So Wu definitely shook people and got everybody's attention. But when we came with Mobb, that's when everybody knew that Loud was for real. And don't forget, I still had the marketing company. So the bigger Loud got, the bigger the marketing company got. The bigger the marketing company, the more people wanted to be at Loud. And we were like 3 for 3. Well, Madcap, we made a little bit of money, but it just did a little over 100. But the Licks didn't go gold, but the Licks did 300,000. Wu did 2 million on the first record, and and Mobb did it. They went platinum on the first album.
So even with knowing like, cause me, you know, I knew of, and I had the 4th and Broadway
Mhm.
Mobb Deep,
Hit him from the back.
Yeah.
yeah, hit it from the back and all that stuff. Like, but in your mind, you were like, yeah, these guys are going to still be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, they came to the office. I don't know if they were going to smoke a cigarette or if they were going to smoke a blunt, but they went to the bathroom. And this is in, like, you know, a corporate building.
Right.
And they lit. Prodigy wasn't there because he was sick. At the time it was Havoc and, you know, some of the guys.
12 guys. Right.
And the sprinklers just went off. I said, they're the perfect follow-up to Wu-Tang. And that's how I looked at it.
The sign. from
So
the
for
heavens.
you, there still had to be an edge or a rock or an element of your groups, that authenticity
Yeah.
to make it
100%.
okay. I see.
And do you mind telling us like a Prodigy story? Just because, you know, we were one of the last shows that he did before we lost him.
I mean, he was like he was a brother to me. I mean, just like he had such a good soul. And you know, he just wanted to learn, and he was like a sponge. I think his oldest son or daughter is my oldest son. I think they're like 4 or 5 months apart. And he would say, "Is your son coming to the office?" I'm like, "I don't know why." He goes, "I need to come up, and I got my kid with me." And you know, if he was coming up, that means he must have been going over some artwork or whatever he was going through. So we were fortunate enough, you know, to have a nanny. So I'm like, "I'll make sure he's here. What time are you going to be here?" So I just had to get approval from my wife, and you know, and the nanny would watch, you know, both babies. You know, and he was appreciative. Like, and you know, we could have arguments and say "fuck you" to each other, but at the end of the day, we would both say, "You know, I love you," and you know, and it wasn't like we were just fighting for what we felt, and it was never about money. It was always about maybe a single or a tour or something like that. It was not like we already spent this and we're not going. It was about passion and really what was going to get to the next level.
All right, so now I have to ask another hot Summer Jam 97 thing. After the Jay-Z incident in 2001, did you, like, how does a label CEO respond to that? To be used like no sweat off your back, just get the next record ready. Actually, wait, can you explain the situation to me? You know, again,
I was in LA for the summer.
Right.
I remember getting the call, and I wanted to call Bane. I'm like, "Where the fuck did you get that picture? Like, how did you get the picture?" Right? So
Ashanti.
What?
Oh, we're gonna get
so you know more.
Prodigy didn't even tell us
we're
that.
gonna get Ashanti on the show. I got the tea on that joint. Yeah.
All right. So
Ashanti.
so at the end of the day, it's like, man, like, let's just get to work, and not even about dissing Jay or whatever. It's like, what's the saying? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never harm you. So, I mean, yeah, we got one on the chin, but you know what? We're still standing, and it's not how many times you fall; it's how many times you get up.
Why did you decide to sell the label in '99?
Because you know, when us selling to Sony, we were going to be the third major in the Sony system. Right?
Okay.
There's Columbia Epic, and now it's going to be us. And it really wasn't about the money. It was more about my ego, which, you know, was fucked up. I was like, all right, we're going to be the third major, and I'm going to be able to have be on the same playing field as Jimmy, as you know, as everybody else. Because I always felt we weren't on the same playing field, and it ended up being the biggest mistake of my life.
So you left in '99. So like the whole Project Pat period and
that all came 3-6 Mafia. Like, we broke 3-6 Mafia, we broke Project Pat, we broke Flip, Pun Pass. During that time, we had Murder Music. We had Murder Music, The Quiet Storm.
Right.
Davina was before. Davina was like 95, 96.
Okay.
But 98, right around the fun time. So that, and there was just, I never played a corporate game before. We went from a staff of 30 people to the coolest, most creative company out there on both aspects, on the marketing side of things and on the record side of things. It's like, and, we did the deal, and next thing you know, I had the staff of 300 people. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, there was this woman, God bless her soul. Her name was Tova Hoffman. She was in her 60s calling me Mr. Rifkind. I'm 35 years old, 36 years old. I'm like, please don't call me Mr. Rifkind, and she was just, and I knew then, it was like, how much time do we have left in this fucking deal? And it was just like, I was stuck for 3 years. I started having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I was like, I just couldn't wait to get the fuck out. And it was the first time ever, like, I didn't know which way to look because I thought I was getting hit every which way I got from corporate.
Now, there's another Philadelphia connection that you kind of have. My good friend Charles Stone III, who directed many a Roots video, made his debut with a street classic called "Paid in Full," which is, I believe, one of your first loud film. Could you talk about the process of getting into the movies?
Again, I didn't want to be in it. We were doing all of Miramax's marketing through the marketing company. Now, we're branching out. Now I have every film studio, MGM, Miramax, Warner Brothers, Plus Records, and the street team marketing went to corporate America, and I sold 25% of the company to a company called Interpublic at that time, which was the largest advertising holding company in the world.
Okay.
So, I forgot the question.
Paid in Full and
Paid in Full. So Miramax they said you should. There was a guy by the name of Scott Lambert who was an agent at William Morris, who was just a really good friend. A really good friend of mine. And he says, Miramax wants to do urban films. Like, I can get you a 3-picture deal. And I'm like, huh? And I'm like, he's like, he was a brother to me. I'm like, Scott, that's not going to happen. Why would they give me a 3-picture deal? So he sets up a meeting with, I don't want to say Hart. I think it was Bob Weinstein, but okay. I couldn't stand Bob. I already had a fight with him once, and I beat the shit out of him.
He meant this. Oh, you mean
yeah?
Oh, what, Steve?
Yeah.
All right, we should ask those questions too.
Yeah.
So no, he was just a fucking prick. I mean, when the big earthquake in LA happened, my office was destroyed. I had to send a report in because I don't give a fuck who died, who this, who that. And I said this. I said, the next time I see you, I promise you I'm gonna smack the shit out of you. And I hung up the phone. A year and a half later, my son is 4 weeks old. He was born June 10th, July 4th weekend, 1995. I'm pulling off. I took a house in the Hamptons, and there's a gas station. I go to take a piss, and there he is. He has no idea who the fuck I am.
And hey, keep going, Steve.
I smacked him in the face. I said, Bobby said, yeah.
And that is our promo, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Rifkind will be on Questlove Supreme, smacking motherfuckers up.
I likes it. I like it a lot.
Smackdown, not just any kind. In the
right.
So
could have got locked up for that.
Now I got it. So now we're doing a presentation for Davina. I mentioned Davina.
Oh yes, please talk.
So we're coming, and my brother says Miramax is coming with an offer. By the time we land, it was Dimension, which was the sister label to Miramax.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the indie side.
Right.
I said, Jonathan, you're full of shit. We land, we get to the hotel, there's a fucking contract. I don't know if my brother forged my fucking signature. I don't even remember signing the deal. And next thing you know, I have a 3-picture. This all happened within a week. A 3-picture deal. And they threw crazy fucking money at us. And then Brett Ratner says, Dame has an incredible story. Like, but I go, who's going to produce it? I don't know nothing about, I don't even know how to produce a record. Like, I'm going to now produce a fucking movie. He goes, no, you're going to hire this guy, Ron. And we hired this guy, Ron. and and the rest is history. And they, you know, I'm not gonna. The only thing that I did is we had the deal, but I got to give credit to Dame. Dame did everything. He picked Charles.
Yeah.
He did everything. I'm not trying to take his thunder. I mean, he did everything, and we, you know, I just went for the ride. When he asked me to take my name off as executive producer, I was taking my name off anyway because it was based on a true story, and I didn't want any fucking headaches. People just coming out of the woodwork.
Right, coming at you.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. So I was taking my name off anyway. I was like, that's not a problem.
We now live in a time in which the African Renaissance has truly arrived with like African music and African artists getting mainstream success. But you know, I know that I mean, I won't say a risk, but you were actually ahead of the game. And I believe you signed Akon. Did you not?
Yeah.
What was it about Akon? And you signed him early, like back in 2004, 2005, I believe.
He was just right when I left Glad, I started SRC Records.
Right.
Mm.
Right. So I signed Banner. I'm a basketball.
Yeah, David Banner and Akon.
Yeah. I'm a basketball guy, and I break my nose playing basketball.
Okay.
And the macho guy that I am, like all I really want to do is cry. But my son is watching. He must be 8 or 9 years old, and I want to show him like I have blood all over me, and I want to show him that it's okay to like get hit and you don't have to cry. Meanwhile, I'm seeing 3 of everything. It's like, you know, if the basket's over there, I shot the ball over there.
Right.
Like, then I literally I never felt pain like, and I just passed out. When they were taking me to the hospital, Kenny Burns was with me.
Huh.
And,
Yeah.
and Kenny, he goes, you got to hear this. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And there was only one record that I wanted to hear. There's only one record that I said, just keep on playing it over and over and over again. And my philosophy was, like, I never considered myself an A&R guy. Like, it was always about the team.
Wait, did
Right.
you say
So-
Kenny Burns said that?
No, I said, Kenny had the tape.
Right.
And he played it for me. We were playing ball, and now we're going to the hospital to get my nose fixed.
Okay. I'm just tripping that Kenny Burns is a part of the Akon story. This is amazing. Okay.
So, in those days, I flew private,
Mm.
and I just didn't know if I was be allowed to fly. I didn't know what the hell was the matter with my nose. It could have been like a full, brain aneurysm. I didn't know what the fuck they said they broke my nose, and I couldn't really fly for 24 hours for infection. So I just said, we're going to Atlanta instead of New York. And I met Divine, I met Akon, and the rest was history. And I pretty much did the same thing. Universal laughed in my face. I said, this is gonna be the biggest artist of my career. And they said, oh, this is gonna be bigger than Wu. I'm like, yeah. And they laughed, and I got so fucking mad. I was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. And I had there was somebody that was with me at Loud who started off as an intern and a street team guy, and then he just grew and grew and grew with me. And then when I started SRC, I gave him a piece of the company, and he was my president. A guy by the name of Gabi Acevedo, and his wife was pregnant at the time. And I said, Gab, you do the East and the South, I'll do the West and the Midwest. And we didn't have a video, we didn't have anything. He took Akon, and I took Akon's brother Boo. And we may believe Boo was Akon. And we
What?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is like the Little Richard James Brown situation. Where both Little Richard and James Brown were touring as Little Richard.
I didn't. Okay.
Oh, it happens.
So we had no video. Nobody knew what Akon looked like. And,
Okay.
and at the end of the day, the record broke in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Salt Lake City, which is like, I fly into New York with a record called Locked Up with Style.
I was just about to say, was it locked up? Okay.
Right, and I come to New York, and this is Republic was known for doing their research. I shit you not. There's a fucking report like this. Must have been 50 pages on every store in Albuquerque and Utah. You wouldn't believe how many fucking stores there were. Between Target to Walmart, and the shit's going through the roof, sales wise. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, I'm trying to bring it east. And, now, And we had to change our philosophy because Republic was a radio company. They didn't understand street records. So I had to cover like Philly came in, Boston came in, Connecticut came in, Miami came in. You know, New York was the last one to come in. You know, and then it was Mother's Day. And I get a phone call from somebody who goes, "What the fuck did you do in Brooklyn?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm talking about Akon." You know, and the truth is I really didn't do anything. We surrounded New York where it would just have to leak in. And with the Kings Plaza Mall, you know, the record was being played in every fucking car. You know, that Monday, Ebro calls me up and he says, "We're adding the record," you know, and then 2 weeks later, like the research was like #1 requested in like top 3 call out.
I have a slight confession.
Mhm.
I have a slight confession. Oh wait.
Oh, what's the confession?
No. Your Wi-Fi
party.
slowed you down. I thought you were at the end of a sentence. Go ahead, finish.
Nah, so I mean the record broke. And it was the first week, I think we scanned 3,000 records. It was the lowest sound scanning record I ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
First week. But each week,
Just
it
build.
didn't go 3,000 to 1,500. It stayed at 3,000, 3,200, 3,100. And when that fucking thing just took off, I mean, by the fall, we were at 60,000 a week.
Mhm.
And we didn't even come up lonely yet.
Ugh. I was
Yo.
so tired of that record. Good God,
Okay.
they played the shit out of that record.
Wait, I have a confession about Locked Up.
Ugh,
I have a
Yeah.
confession about Locked Up, and this is before the era of Shazam, where you can't find out who the artist is. I swear to God, for a good 21 seconds, I said, "Holy shit, Roberta Flack made comeback of the
I'm
century."
gone.
Yo,
but so hear me out. But
yo,
Locked Up with Styles P was also a remix.
I didn't hear his verse, but Akon's voice was so I can't describe it.
That is such a compliment to Akon. Such a compliment.
No, and I'm not saying it's androgynous, but I literally thought it was a woman singing, and because it was done in such a rich alto, and I never heard this voice before, for 20 seconds, I was like, wait.
A rich
Like it could happen. I was like
Roberta Flack would be
Lauryn
locked
Hill
up,
and Aretha
right?
Franklin working together. I was like, yo, let me find out that that's Roberta Flack is about to come back like a motherfucker. It took me man.
That's awesome.
Sorry,
Okay.
Akon. Yo, I'm down with
Don't
Akon.
say sorry. Hey, he wish he had a voice like that. That's beautiful.
I'm literally just
Rich.
that just came out of nowhere. Okay, wait. Before I let you go, there's one question I always ask of every label CEO. Can you tell me 3 acts that you almost signed that were close but no cigars?
Jay-Z,
You could have signed Jay-Z.
BMG, RC hated me so much, and because we took them for so much money, they didn't want to give us any more money to sign Jay. But I go back with Dane since he's 15, 16 years old when he was managing Original Flavor.
Wow.
So
That's dope.
So Jay, he wasn't an act, but he was, to me, one of the best executives. You know, Irv Gotti. When he had Mike Geronimo, we tried to get the record.
Shit.
And Irv will tell you this. Whatever reason, we couldn't get the sample cleared, and then BMG was saying you're wasting your time. And this was literally, I just signed Mobb Deep. They said you're wasting your time, and we're not going to give you the money to do it. Find something else. So if I did the deal with Mike, I'm sure Irv would have ended up being with me.
Are you talking about Master IC or
The
second single that he had that was more puffy-ish?
No, the first single.
Master IC. That's a goddamn masterpiece.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Jay-Z, Irv,
and then M.
and then Eminem.
You had a chance to sign him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing was this: if he stayed with us, and I had dinner with Paul Rosenberg a few weeks ago, he wouldn't have been Eminem 400 million records later.
Right.
He would have been Eminem. He would have been Eminem 50 million records. He was an underground rapper.
Yeah.
You know, and you talk about genie in a bottle, right? So you're talking about him and Dre just creating magic.
Mm-hmm.
That you know, he would have been Mobb Deep. He would have been Wu. You know, Pun, we had a pop record on, was still not to play it, but you know, he would have been just in that lane. That was the only thing we knew how to do.
Wow. So I know that, you know, what I think is also interesting about your story is the fact that how the lineage goes down from your grandfather, your father, to you, and now your son is an MC, correct?
So my youngest, both my sons played ball.
Okay.
You know, one played college, another one played for a famous high school out in LA, and he didn't want to go to college. And out of nowhere, he just started rapping. And he put out a record and shit, put the record out himself. He did, you know, a few 100,000 streams. Flex played the record on his own.
Without knowing the connection?
No, knowing the connection.
Okay,
But
okay.
but it was during the holidays, so he had a 2-week run, and he was going to music school in Florida, Full Sail, and it was just, you know, my son, he doesn't want to read it, he needs to see it and feel it. So he lost his love from doing like real schoolwork. That's not him. So, you know, he has 12 of his friends, or like his crew, they're all in the NBA. So he's going to be an intern for Rich Paul starting in December.
Dope.
The way you're talking about basketball, I feel like
Dope.
your true passion is owning a team or.
Nah, I've lost so much money in basketball. I mean, I'm just a fan now. That's all I'm going to be. I've lost tens of millions of dollars.
But did you try to?
No, never try to own a team. But like my philosophy in life, and this is what I learned from my dad: if I can help one person and save their life and put them in the right direction, then I did my job on earth. No money could, you know, that feeling of saving somebody, you can't put a price on that. And you know, so when me and my wife split, my kids are interracial.
Okay.
And they all came out different complexion, all three of them. You know, and one came out really light skinned like Jack the Rapper. And
Okay.
so when we split, she moved to Florida. And there's an area called Delray Beach. And in this one area in Delray Beach, it's probably the most gang affected in all of Florida, in a 5-block radius. And there was a gym there. And she threw him in there and she goes, you got to learn how to stand on your own. And she wouldn't let me go to any games. And then finally, like, I didn't know what AEU was or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know where, I think she was coming out to LA. I don't know where she was going, but she goes, oh, you got to pick up Alex at 2:00. Yeah, it's a game at 12. I get there at 1 to watch the game. And I knew he was gifted. And then, but I didn't know that he had 2 other games that night. You know, 1 at 6 and 1 at 9. I was in heaven. And I just started going to the games, and, you know, they respected him for who he was. And I just minded my own business. I wasn't going to try and buy a team. But I didn't know that he was 11 and he was playing on a 14-under team and they didn't win a game. And, but now, and he wasn't talking to me with me and his mom separating, but now he was back in my life. And I said to the coach, I said, the season can't be over. And he says, well, you know, it's over. I'm like, you got to find something. I go, he goes, well, there's a tournament next week for a 12 and under team. I said, well, Alex is 11. How old is he? And like, we end up putting 6 guys on the team. He goes, who will coach? I said, I will. He says, what do you know about basketball? I said, enough. I shit you not. I go 70-0 that whole fucking summer.
7-0?
7-0. 7-0. So Florida's known for football. I know nothing about football. Half my team are professional football players right now. So they were just the best athletes in the world. And I just had them press. and they could all shoot the shit out of the ball and jump. And they were, how old was Alex? He was 11 or 12 at that time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really thought I was going to become a professional basketball
Precious
coach.
son.
Like, I had him traveling. We won states, we won nationals, we won the world games. And I just started taking on challenges. And then I get a phone call to buy a tournament, which was like a record convention. And it just like one thing led to another. And I lost my shirt. But at the end of the day, that is my happiness. Music, right? Music is the closest thing to God, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Make you laugh, it can make you cry, just your memories. It just, it touches your soul pure. And basketball it just touches me too, where I get fucking crazy.
Do you still get an itching for like just one more hit? Metaphorically speaking, as in drugs, not like a hit single, but just are you addicted at all to the adrenaline
Yeah.
of finding that rare gem?
So
that-
I got this kid right now. His name is Take 45. In
What's his name?
January, Take 45.
Okay.
From San Diego, California.
Mhm.
18 years old, self-contained, produces himself. He had 8 monthly users on Spotify. And now he's closing in on, I want to say, a little under 200,000. He had 20 followers on TikTok, and we're closing in on 300,000 followers. And all this kid is just keep on putting out music, and his energy is fucking ridiculous. And people will say to me, it's nothing what people are used to be putting out. But you know what? My old day, one of my old A&R guys on the West Coast brought it to me. And it's different. He's self-contained. And each day we're going up slowly, and he's going to break. I just don't know when. I don't know how to read records there, but the adrenaline that I get every day, and just seeing it, if we're up 10 streams or 1,000 streams or getting on a new playlist. I was sick for a while. I had a massive heart attack 8 years ago.
Well, that's why you lost the weight.
No, I just lost weight because I don't want to get another heart attack.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
There we go.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
So, yeah, I was dead 3 times.
Oh man.
What was that
That's
experience like? Was it just overworking? Was it stress?
It was never going to the doctor and not taking care of myself. If I went to a doctor and said, hey, your blood pressure is high, you got to do something. You got to lose 10 pounds. You got to do this. You got to do that. But it was, I'm not blaming my ex-wife. I'm not blaming anybody. It was just me not taking care of myself. You could say stress, you could say this, you could say that, but it was just, you got to know your body and you got to just take care of yourself. You
got to make yourself a priority, not somebody else.
Yeah,
We all learned that in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Thank God.
You can't be a victim. And and just like, who wants to hear a victim story?
No, at least not of your own self. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you don't feel like a stranger in the strange land in terms of like,
Yeah, I do. I have no idea what the fuck.
Okay, good.
I have no fucking clue. I called the Empire Distributors. Ghazi to me is the smartest guy in the music business. I don't want to bother him. So I speak to his, like, what can I do today? Like, I used to make a call sheet, right? With 200 fucking people, it'd be some mix show guys, my street team guys, this, right? I got 5 guys in, right? And they all work with me who are all at the DSPs. I sit here like just twiddling my fucking thumbs, and I'll take a nap at 3 o'clock.
Sounds
Yeah.
like a good day.
but I'm just saying that today, like, how is it different now promoting, especially with the internet at the helm?
You
Like
have
you
nobody,
were the internet in the early 90s.
but you have nobody to promote to. Like, you can't promote. You can't promote Spotify. The record, they don't want the record on the radio yet. So my day was today. I got him a booking agent at UTA, right?
Mhm.
And I was really excited to do your thing. So I went to lunch, made a few calls, and just thinking about the podcast all day.
Sound like freedom to me.
That's a dope day.
That's amazing.
Seriously, I'm like,
Wait a minute. I'm gonna get crushed if I don't ask one Asher Roth question.
oh yeah.
All right.
Could you talk about your work with Asher Roth and
I mean, it was Scooter. I mean, as great as Asher was, I know he's from Pennsylvania.
Right.
Philly. A guy by the name of Jerry Clark introduced me to Scooter. I was in Atlanta, and Scooter, I think, was still in college.
Mhm.
And he just reminded me a little of myself. I thought he was a little bit more full of shit, but I thought he was brilliant. And I offered him to become president of the company with no experience.
Huh?
And
Wait,
he
you
said,
gave Scooter his start?
I gave Scooter his first record deal.
Oh.
Shit. Now I feel like there's a question that I should be asking that I don't know to ask because, again, you keep on pulling these historical.
I gave Scooter. So this is what I'm proud of. I gave Scooter his first record deal with Asher Roth. I
Okay.
gave Guy Osiri. I got him his first deal with Henji and Eva Lee with Ruben Rodriguez at Pendulum Records.
Wait, what? So
Guy
he
was
just didn't start at Maverick?
Guy was 18 years old.
You gave, oh shit. Okay.
No, I didn't sign. I didn't sign him. I made the deal for Guy.
So Guy was managing Henji
Yeah, and Eva Lee.
at the age of 18?
Yeah, he was managing, I think, at the age of 16. And I begged him to go, let's start an independent record company, and he fucking said no.
Wow. Okay.
All right, give
Guy's
us
my
another
guy at
one.
Maverick. So
Give us another one. I want one more. Yeah, it's at least a 3.
yeah, like give me some more. Start bragging. Brag on yourself. This is my Nori moment.
I mean, I can't brag on myself, but Scooter, I offered him to become president of SRC. He said no. I said to the guy, let's start a record company. He said no, and I made the deal. And then, and that's, and then RZA, me, RZA and Fat Joe, those are, I talked to them.
Can I ask you an awkward question that probably nobody had ever asked? Was it ever awkward to have that many 5%ers on a label?
Thank you. Good night.
Honestly,
We should have asked that to Dante also.
I mean, the
mean,
black man is God and the white man is devil.
They were all at my wedding. I mean, I never thought about it till just now.
Okay.
It never came to my,
I also asked that to know. I wanted to know at some point where do they stop? Because I feel like also at a certain point you're helping them make money too. So it's
No,
like,
you don't
okay,
fuck
I'm gonna
with the
just
bag.
I'm gonna
You
shut the
don't
fuck
ever
up.
fuck with the
But
bag.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
you never fuck with the bag.
Right. It's
no,
like
the only one that we had issues with was Dead Prez.
oh yeah.
I forgot about that press.
But at the end of the day, I probably handled it wrong. It was my ego was hurt. It was like, how the fuck can they not trust me?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean,
You were there for the first record. Were you there for the second album?
No.
I can tell. Okay.
Oh.
I wish
I didn't
wish
believe
that second
I loved
that
it. I
second
loved
album should have blown up and it didn't.
No,
But-
but then you look at MOP, Annie Up. It was just like those are records to this day, that still give me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Stay around forever. No, I mean, this is the first time I think you and I are talking, man. But I've heard nothing but just stand up things about you, and all the respect that you had, and this is like a long overdue conversation, man. I thank you for coming on the show.
You in New York or you in LA?
I'm currently in New York.
All right, so next time I'm in, we got to go to dinner.
No doubt.
My daughter goes. My
exchange
daughter
numbers
lives in
after
New
the
York.
taping.
Yeah.
That's right. You got a daughter too.
Yeah.
All right.
Where do you guys want to go for dinner? I'll set it up and I'll.
Sick as Steve.
We'll come too.
Look at that.
Wait, Sugar, Bill, nothing, no questions.
Well, I mean, Steve, it sounds like you made a lot of close friends, and a lot of people hate you, which makes you an authentic Steve. So congratulations on that. But what a great career. I mean, no, it just too much to process. Incredible.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
No,
follow
at,
that
at
up.
the end of the day, I really wish I was there at Radio City for that night at
And
the
that
Loud celebration.
that night was so fucking special. I mean, it was. I mean, I think it was X's last performance,
It was.
and it was right before everything shut down.
Yep. It was amazing. I was in LA.
Radio
that
City would never be the same after that. They
They
never
won't.
saw so many people backstage in their life.
Good God.
Yeah, also wanted to know how that was organized. and whatnot,
Rockets.
but- well, on behalf of Sugar Steve and Bill and Fontegalo and Laia,
Thanks.
the great Steve Rifkind.
Yes. Thank you for the
on
music.
Questlove
And-
Supreme.
Thanks for the
This was
music, man.
This was amazing. Hope I didn't talk too much.
No, we live for
Oh,
rabbit holing.
What
Trust
is
me.
that?